If your child's school has just told you that your child will receive SEN support, and you smiled and nodded along, but in the back of your mind you're thinking, what on earth is SEN support? This video is your roadmap. I'm Sarah Lynn, your host of the Mindful Toolbox podcast. I've worked within education for over a decade, first as a classroom teacher, and now I own a tutoring company that supports neurodivergent learners. And I've been on both sides of the conversation. Today we're going to be uncovering what exactly SEN support stands for here in the current UK education system, the one we are currently dealing with today. So grab your notebook, and if you can't, we have a comprehensive download guide in order to ensure that you're maximizing what your child gets with SEN support. I prepared. I knew today was going to be quite an intensive one, so we got the job of today. Right, what is SEN support here in the UK? Here's a fun fact for you. 88% of children across the UK are registered on what is called SEN support. I want to highlight, we're not talking about an EHCP right now, not an educational health and care plan, but SEN support, special educational needs support. And based on the amount of families that I've worked with, I would imagine that you've been in those meetings before where, the teacher or the SENCO would say, your child has been given SEN support. And you nod and you smile and you're so grateful. You're like, yes, somebody gets it. Somebody gets that we need a little bit of extra support. You grab your keys, you go to your car, and before you're able to sit down behind that driver wheel, it hits you. What on earth is SEN support? Like, what does it mean tangibly for my child? What does it mean in action? How is it different than normal support, quote unquote normal support? Like, does it mean they go to extra classes? Do they have someone following them around and making sure that they have understanding? Do they have a different teacher? Do they get pulled out of other lessons? Like, what is the impact that we can expect? So here's a quick translation for you. SEN support sits pretty much in the middle. So we have traditional school teaching, we have an educational healthcare plan, and then we have in the middle SEN support. It's for children who have educational needs that go beyond traditional classroom teaching, but are not quite significant enough to need a legal documentation, like a legal framework, like an EHCP, which we will talk about later today. I'm going to put the timestamp here so you can jump there if that relates more to you. But did you see the announcement for £200 million being donated or being infused in a new SEND teacher training? I definitely did a happy dance. I'm not even joking. I called one of my friends and we just gabbed about it for such a long time because this is so important. This is what we've been rallying for, and it's so exciting to see it in the horizon. However, I needed to bring myself down to earth a little bit. And so I want to have that quick chat with you, that quick heart to heart. Make sure you've got your coffee here because I'm saying this with care. Every single teacher, they want to roll out this specific training to ensure an inclusive approach to SEN learning. Great. But this is probably going to be rolled out at the earliest September 2026. Okay. Then if we look at things a little bit more closely, we know that things don't get rolled out right away. It's going to take at least 2 to 3 years, right? Your child is in year 7. This isn't going to hit their classroom until maybe the time that they're in year 9. And by year 9, let's be honest, it's not that it's too late, but we already need support in place to help them with their GCSE pathway. We can't wait that long. Your child needs help now. So here is what I would suggest that you do with this new news. 1, celebrate it, soak it in, but don't stop what you're currently going after. Don't wait for it to be here to support your child. 2, when you're talking to your child's SENCO, drop it in. This shows that you're paying attention, but you're not pinning your entire child's support on something that's not in place yet. Thirdly, the school comes back with something along the lines of, well, actually, there's a new teacher training that's coming out, so we're going to wait in order to add any additional support because we want to make sure that it's in line with the new training. Wrong. No, your child's school has a duty, a legal duty right now. It's always had a legal duty to support your child by identifying and supporting their educational needs. So even though we have a SEN training program coming, great, celebrate that, sign your school up, but your students still need access now. SEN Support requires a specific plan. This plan is known as the graduated approach. It has 4 words: assess, plan, do, review. Let's dive into assess. Assess is just what it sounds like. The school is basically going to compile evidence that tells us how your child learns. We're going to look at everything from teacher feedback, child feedback, depending on their age, parent feedback, look at different assessments. We're going to make sure we have a really good, clear view of where your child's gaps lie. Good assessment sounds like Joe is reading at a level 3, but for his age, he should be at a level 6. In terms of phonics, we've noticed that blending his sounds is where he tends to struggle. When we speak to him, he's able to communicate really elaborate and complex ideas. However, when it comes to putting them down on paper, he really struggles to organize. See? That is specific. We want to know the exact targeted detail that we need support with. So that specific assessment goes into the second word, plan. Now, our plan is where we decide the specific interventions. Now, plan for me always did my head in as a teacher because I could see these amazing, beautiful, elaborate plans. However, it didn't always go to plan. You see what I'm saying? It needs to be better than just Joe needs reading interventions and we'll help him when we can. Help him when we can. As a teacher, I know that if it's not scheduled in and we don't know exactly who is going to do it and when and with what resources and in which room, and we've made sure that we've booked that room out, that plan is laughable. It's just not going to happen even if we have the best intentions. So the plan needs to sound more like Joe is going to be practicing his phonics using Read Write Inc. with Mrs. Smith every day for 30 minutes with 4 other children in the computer lab after break. See the difference? One is vague, full of hope and good intention, and the other will get things done. And I know I'm sounding maybe a little bit like OTT right now, but I've seen it too many times to not bring this to your attention. There's so many things that happen within school life that if we don't communicate well, and if we don't write things in a plan that has everybody else's plans laid out as well, it's just not going to get done. Do means they actually do it. Life happens. Like the TA gets pulled into a severe argument or disruption in a different class. There's miscommunication about whether or not you scheduled the computer lab. There's a sports function on. Like there's so many things that happen within school life that it's going to get left to the good intentions. And this is where you need to keep your notes. This is where you need to ask your child, did you do phonics today? Where did you guys go? What did you learn? And you're not trying to catch anyone out. You're just trying to keep record of your own notes, because if you hear that it's only happening fortnightly, but your SEN support plan is for it to happen 5 days a week, and it's been multiple weeks when that's not happening, you need to bring that up. You need to flag that. Now we have review. So review ideally happens every 12 weeks, at least once a term. This is where we're going to look back at the impact that those interventions have made. Sometimes we need to do a little bit of test and trial and error. We need to have patience for that testing, but this is why a specific review timeline ensures that we're not doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? That's called madness. We don't do that with children's education. We want to make sure that we're tweaking things along the way to make sure that these interventions are having a positive impact. Okay, quick pause. Can you do me a favor? If you found this helpful at all, can you head down here and hit subscribe? It's a little bit weird for me to ask, but it actually really helps other families in similar scenarios as your own to find this information, and it means that we can support more children along their educational pathway. Every other Thursday, I'm going to share important information that can help you navigate not just academics, but also child well-being. We look at the intersection of the two. So if that sounds of interest to you, hit that subscribe below. I'm so grateful for you. Let's get back to it. Can I ask you something? And be honest, even though I can't hear your response, like put it in the comments if you want, but say it out loud for me. Have you actually asked your school about any of this stuff? I'm not trying to call you out if you're like, no, not me. All I'm doing is I'm reflecting back to you what I see with so many of the families that we work with. What typically happens is parents hear SEN Support and they think, woo, okay, finally, somebody who gets it, someone's going to take ownership, things will change, my child will improve, all the good, like everything is on the right track. And the school, they think, perfect, we've said the words SEN Support. Therefore, the parent knows that we've got it under control and we've explained everything, they don't have any questions. But no one's actually had a conversation about what this means in practice. So that's why I want to give you 3 questions that you can ask in order to facilitate that conversation with your school in a collaborative way. So if you zoned out for a second, that's cool. There's no judgment, I get it, but come back because this is important. This is the part that I want you to screenshot, and remember, if you can't do that right now, I've got you down in the show notes. We have all of the templates, all of the preceding timelines, and all of the suggested methods that you can ask and speak to your school in order to help you. But I want to talk about these 3 questions. Question number 1, what specific intervention is my child receiving? We're looking for specificity. How many minutes? What's the ratio of child to teacher? What program are they using? What are we specifically looking for as an outcome? If they say, your child is going to be receiving literacy support 15 minutes a week, 4 other students with Mrs. Smith in the computer lab after break, that is a real one, and we're very happy to receive that response. If they say, the TA will support them, or we'll give them extra help when they ask for it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be raising a flag here, but children who need support, do they ever voluntarily ask for it? No, not really. That's why they need support, is because they don't want to signal themselves out. So we cannot be putting the onus and responsibility of seeking up support on a child. It's our job as the educators to put that in place. And if they don't have something like this, how can we approach it? Well, my suggestion is to use a very calm, kind tone, and you say something along the lines of, that sounds helpful. Could we maybe put this into a timetable? Just that way there I understand what's happening every day and I can make sure that Zoe's on track too. Plus it means that I can reinforce what you're doing at school at home as well. I think that could be really helpful. Boom! Collaboration. Question number 2. What specific measurable outcomes are we after? What targets are we going after? Not, we would like Zainab to improve her reading. Yeah, okay, that's great, but we're doing interventions right now. What does that look like? It means we would like Zainab to move from reading at a level 7 to a level 8 by the time Easter rolls around. Great, that's perfect. It gives us a specific time-bound plan and we know what we're going for. Question number 3, final question. When are we going to review progress and how are you going to determine if that progress has been successful? This pins down the timeline. Ideally, we should be pushing for 12 weeks minimum. And if school can't give you that specificity of when they're willing to do this review, that's a bit of a red flag. We need to push back on that a little bit. And look, I want to be incredibly clear here. These are not gotcha questions. Okay, I, as a teacher, would never feel comfortable if I knew that a parent was asking me a question and setting me up for failure. I would never do that to anybody else, and I wouldn't want someone to be doing it to me or any of my coworkers. These questions are to make sure that everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, so we all are working together. I've talked about this in many of our videos. The most important shape when we're working in the education system is the triangle: the child, the school, the parent. When that triangle is secure, then we know we're all working on the same goal, we're all on the same team, and we can move forward and progress together. That is what we need. And like, the thing is, being an advocate doesn't mean that you have to be adversary. We can be a strong advocate. We can really put our foot down when we need to. However, we can also do it in a way that says, like, look, I just want to reflect what you're doing at school and at home, or I want to make sure that we're working on this together. A SENCO is going to appreciate that because it actually makes their job easier. When the school is being reflected at home, the child's progress is going to increase quicker. So we need to make sure that even when we're frustrated, check that frustration at the door and make sure that we're reaching out in a positive way. So let's dig into when SEN support is not enough. Now, this may have been the part of the video that most of you jumped to, or most of you are excited about, because for whatever reason, we have this belief that educational healthcare plans are this magic wand solution, this finish line, that if we just get a tick for an EHCP, everything else will be better. But the reality is that an EHCP is not always better than good SEN support. It's just different. Basically, an EHCP, a legal document for children who need support that's above what the school's traditional SEND budget can accommodate for. So let's figure that out a little bit more, like who actually needs one and what does that process look like? I'm just gonna say it out loud right now. This is not going to be a walk down yellow brick road to find your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Okay, it's gonna be a long process. Who actually needs an EHCP? Well, children who need a significant amount of one-to-one support throughout the majority of their day. 2, children who need specialist equipment or adaptations that cost more than what the school's traditional SEN budget can cover. Or 3, children whose needs are so complex that they require a legal document that will follow and ensure they maintain the same level of support at every section of their education pathway. If your child qualifies, then you're going to want to know what that process looks like. So if you've kind of wandered off a little bit, come back, because this 20-week program that we're promised doesn't always look the way it is. I'm going to break it down for you. Weeks 0 to 6, either you or a school can put in an application for an EHC assessment. And it's really important for me to note, you can do it by yourself. Though I will say that applications are usually stronger or considered more impactful if the school is on board as well. So that's why I've harped on about why we need to stay collaborative with the school. By week 6, the local authority decides whether or not they are going to move forward with the assessment. This is the first pressure point that many of the EHCP requests get denied. We need to know up front that it's not very often that EHC needs assessment request is granted. Week 16 is when they decide if they're actually going to put a plan in place. As you can imagine, this is the second pressure point, because even if they've looked at all of the evidence, if it's not substantial enough, they can still decide not to move forward. Week 16 to 20, if you do get a plan, it will be submitted to you. The most important part is that you have 15 days to request any amendments. So the official timeline that we are told, 20 weeks. The reality? We've been working with some families that have been through this process for 9-12 months. So if you apply for an EHC needs assessment for your child who's in year 7 in January, it may be that they're not going to get any support until the beginning of year 8. That's just the way it is. So that's why we talk about how important it is to go through the path of SEN, already have that relationship with your school so that you can keep providing SEN interventions for your child while you're still navigating the EHC pathway. Now, I don't want to gloss over something that was really important that I said. On week 16 to 20, you are then given your EHCP if it has been approved and drafted and given to you. You have 15 days in order to go through it and ask for an amendment. After those 15 days, that is a legally binding document that will follow your child. We cannot let gray areas live within the EHCP. It is imperative. You wouldn't let some John Smith down the road interpret your life insurance policy. You're not going to let some new teacher at a new school that doesn't know your child interpret what it means to have emotional regulation support. You are going to make sure that it is so specific that anybody could pick up that document and have the same vision of what needs to happen for your child, regardless of whether they know them or not. That is how specific we want this binding contract to be, because it literally follows them at every phase of their education. Okay, I promised we would talk about what makes an EHCP more effective, so I'm going to give you the 3 things here. First and most importantly, we need to ensure that you can demonstrate evidence of need. You need to be able to show with many different forms of evidence that your child actually has needs and requirements that are above what SEN Support could provide. This is why keeping notes of the impact of the SEN Support they've already been receiving is imperative. Reading assessments, writing assessments, their actual notebook to see how they plan and organize to identify executive functioning needs. The more evidence that you can provide, the better, which is why working with the school makes your job a little bit easier. Number 2, we need to have evidence of intervention. We need to prove that your child has already been provided and we've exhausted all of the support that the school can actually provide. Therefore, you need to show what the child has already been given through SEN Support, through the school's normal routes of support, and we need to demonstrate why and what they were lacking. And then number 3, often overlooked but very important, is evidence of impact. How does having these surplus needs impact your child? And what I mean by that is often we might start by saying, Tasman can't complete homework. Well, neither can Harry or Rosalind, but they're not looking for an EHCP. Tasman can't do homework without spending 2 hours every night with me sitting beside him, coaching him through every stage, and it always ends in tears. Okay, that is a little bit more clear. A couple more things that I've learned with working with students through Maverick Education, my tutoring company where we support families at various stages of their neurodiversity journey. 1, keep records, but don't weaponize them. Yes, absolutely write down and follow up an email after phone call conversations to make sure that you have in writing what the school is going to provide for your child and the answers to all of the questions that I've given you. Make sure you have that, but we're not using it to catch someone out. We're using it to make sure that you have that evidence at any stage of your journey. It creates accountability without being confrontational. 2, start from assuming well until proven otherwise. Listen, SENCO, a special educational needs, an LSA, a TA, schools are busy places. They are understaffed and overpopulated. It is what it is. We need to work with what the system is that we're in. So when a SENCO doesn't call you back on the day that they said that they would, we can't get a hold of them and start with confrontational language, like, why didn't you call me back? We need to acknowledge and validate that they're probably dealing with 40 other families very similar to your own. We want to be the one that she wants to call back. you know? So you say things like, I understand that you're stretched incredibly thin right now. Instead of having a phone call, why don't we communicate by email? Or, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? Bring solutions, not just problems. 3, be frustrated with the system, but not the people. Be angry that we are oversubscribed, that it's taken until 2026 for us to have the view of SEN teacher training. Be so angry that we have such turnover in the education system because of how discouraged everyone is feeling. Feel all of those things. I feel them on a very visceral level. But the people that we're interacting with, they don't need that frustration and anger. Remember, they've chosen to be in that educational world because at one point they believe they could be a change. And so we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. So when you're sitting across the table from the head of year or the SENCO and you feel that wave of frustration and anger because it doesn't feel like things are getting through, you could say something like, look, I know you're doing everything in your power here, but what do we need in order to reach that next level of accommodations? This reminds me of a family that I was working with. She contacted me and she was so angry, so upset, and rightfully so, because her child had high level of ASD and many needs, dyspraxia, dyslexia. There were so many things that were impacting his learning and therefore impacting his emotional well-being. And her and the school, they were just butting heads. And it got to a point where when she was speaking to me, I was thinking, oh, even I'm starting to feel like that frustration is coming towards me and I'm here to help. Like, I'm on your side and we know that. But if I'm feeling this, something needs to change. So I put a boundary in, but the boundary was that we're going to reframe things. Instead of going in with entitlement, like, you need to figure out this one-to-one support for my child. They are entitled to it. This is what they need. This is what's in writing, and you need to give it to us. We reframed it. We said, okay, if one-to-one support isn't feasible right now for the school because of the amount of staffing issues that you have, what are other accommodations that we can put in place to support his learning? Can he have access to a quiet room in order to regulate? Can he have a check-in buddy that maybe he doesn't have access to them all the time, but he can go and connect with them if he's feeling a little wobbly? Can he have a variety of different accommodations like a fidget tool or blue tack with him to help him regulate? And you know what? By the next week, there were at least 3 different accommodations that were put in place for him. Why? Because it became less of a you owe us to a let's work together. Here are my thoughts. What do you think is feasible right now? And knowing that we can address things step by step. What can we do right now? And how can we get to where I want to go or what we need to do slowly but surely? But, and this is important, if you feel like you've done all of that and for whatever reason, it's just not possible, then you escalate. You ask for a meeting with the SENCO and with the head teacher. You can contact the local authorities SEND team. So many different local authorities have something called the SENDIASS. They provide impartial advice and they often can help mediate as well. But if your school is genuinely not meeting their legal requirement, then you can escalate this further with a complaint to the governors. In really extreme cases, there is a tribunal. But exhaust everything that we've talked about today because it is not only incredibly grueling for you as a parent, it feels like an additional job, but it also creates disconnect where your child's still in school and still needs to have a safe feeling of being in school, but it also impacts your child because now we have even less support for them because you're not able to be a grounded, safe adult for them because you're going to be so busy. Okay, as I am a teacher first and foremost, I have a little plan for you, a little task. Just choose the one that sits right with where you are in your journey right now. Let's look at them. Option number 1, document what you're seeing. Grab a note in your phone and just every time your child struggles with homework, write down what's happening, how long it took, what behaviors you're seeing, and more importantly, what you're hearing your child say. Date it, keep it factual. 2, ask for a meeting with your SENCO. You can steal this template here. Remember, it's down in the show notes for you to download as well. Something like, Dear SENCO, I'd like to discuss my child's progress and explore whether they might benefit from additional support. Are you available in the next 2 weeks? Then, give them some of your options of availability. Simple. Notice what you're not saying. My child needs an EHCP. What you're saying instead is, I know that there's something that needs adjusting here, and I'd like to work with you to figure out what that is. Step 3, prepare for that meeting. I want you to choose 3 specific examples. Don't go in with a long list. That's overwhelming. Choose 3 specific examples of how your child is currently struggling. Ahmed told me he doesn't want to go to school 3 times this week. Or, Ahmed's reading has been the same level for 6 months, but I'm also concerned that she's not progressing. Or, Ahmed's homework is actually not taking us our required 20 minutes. It can sometimes take upwards of 2 hours, and it usually ends in big battles and tears. That is 3 different ways that you can bring in specific needs that your child has. Step 4, in the meeting, ask the 3 questions that we've talked about in this episode. We covered them earlier. Ask those in this specific meeting. Step 5, follow up in writing. A lot of times we have verbal agreements with school, and we need to ensure that we have a written copy of what is expected. It also ensures that we remain factual and we're not being driven by emotion. So give it 24 hours and then write an email that summarizes everything that you talked about. Option number 6, give it time, but don't wait forever. So make sure that you understand when that review is going to take place. And option number 7, which I would recommend to anyone at any point in this journey, is to get support. You've done a great thing by finding the Mindful Toolbox podcast, and I'm so happy to be a support system for you, but there are so many other places that you can find support as well. So, to summarize, we are dance party level so excited that there is SEN support on the horizon, but we are not pinning our child's future on something that is in the distance. Instead, we are working with the system that we have now, and that is what we talked about in this video. Now, here is what I need from you. 3 things. Are you ready? First, I would love for you to go down in the show notes and download the SEN guide that we've created. It is going to include all of the definitions, qualifications, timelines, scripts, and email templates that will help you through the beginning process of identifying whether or not your child needs SEN support and how to get it, or an EHCP and how to approach it. Number 2, I encourage you to drop me a message down below. I think it will also be helpful for other families that are listening and watching these videos because it creates a sense of community, and instead of feeling isolated in our journey, we can see where each other is. Speaking of, that leads me to number 3, share this with a friend. We're friends here. We don't gatekeep. If you share this information with more families, we're going to ensure that more children can benefit from understanding the process. Okay, editing Sarah Lynn here. I realized that many of you who are watching are actually dealing with emotional-based school non-attendance. Like, your child won't even get to school in order to receive the SEN support. Am I right? If that's you, I've made an entire episode on EBSNA, so emotional-based school non-attendance. It includes all of the scripts, the email templates, how you can support your child, everything that you need to know in order to help your child overcome school avoidance. I'm gonna link it right here because it's likely the best next step for you. I'll see you in there.